This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A Ukrainian woman living in Winnipeg has started an emotional journey home. Hannah Sidorchenko left Ukraine with her son after Russia invaded. Her husband stayed to defend the country, and he was killed earlier this month. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, his widow is now on a mission to fulfill his longtime dream.
35-year-old Andriy Sidorchenko's widow says his ability to smile in a war zone is reflective of his personality. Outside Winnipeg's airport, before beginning a long journey back to Ukraine, Hannah Sidorchenko says her husband stayed positive despite the dangers around him.
He was always telling that he was a very positive person, and what he was telling is that he will return and they will live together here.
Hannah spoke Friday through translator and friend Oksana Lazarenko. Through close relatives of one of Andriy's friends and fellow soldiers, she found out May 5th he died in a battle in the eastern city of Bakhmut. Now she's returning to Ukraine with Lazarenko to learn more about the circumstances of his death and find his body.
She needs to find strength in herself. It's pretty hard.
Hannah says she's heard 2 other soldiers were killed in the same battle and 2 were injured. Andriy was serving as a drone operator. His role was to check battlefields for Russian enemies to minimize losses to the Ukrainian armed forces. Like so many others, he gave up his job, which was in construction, to serve. Hannah and their son Rostislav moved to Poland before coming to Canada. Andriy wanted to come to Canada before Russia invaded, but once the war started, he had to stay and help defend his home country. Hannah says Andriy was collecting pictures of Canada. He worked as a welder and wanted to ply his trade here. It's her hope she can find his body.
It was his dream to come to Canada.
They plan to stay in Kyiv and work with lawyers, volunteers, and people on the front lines. The congregation of Soul Sanctuary Church paid for Hannah's flight. She wants to give her husband a funeral and then bring his ashes back to the country he had hoped to call home. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Anyone who's driven between Manitoba and Ontario knows how narrow the Trans-Canada Highway becomes. Preparations have already begun on twinning the highway. And while the Manitoba government says the work is needed to improve safety and connectivity, CBC's Cameron McLean reports some people who live in the area want to know just where this new highway will go.
Devin Emery's ranch in Manitoba's Whiteshell region draws many people down this busy stretch of the Trans-Canada Highway.
During a busy time in the summer, we can take up to 100 people a day on rides, and so it's a significant portion of the visitors to this area that come and make use of this business, for sure.
Now, work has begun on twinning the 17 kilometers between Falcon Lake and the Ontario border, something proponents, including Premier Heather Stephenson, have said is long overdue.
We need to have this connectivity to get our goods to market. This is the Trans-Canada Highway that needs to be twinned. And it should have been done a long time ago.
Work has begun on twinning this stretch of highway within 700 meters of the Ontario border. Crews here are clearing trees and making other preparations. This stage of the project is expected to be finished by fall of next year, but it will likely be another 4 years before design work is finished and construction on the rest of the highway can begin.
Calls for twinning the highway grew louder after Mark and Jacob Luley died in a head-on collision with a semi-truck in 2019. Mark's brother Peter wishes the work could go faster.
We do not want families to go through what ours did, and 3 to 4 years before work actually begins seems to be, for that stretch of road, seems to be a long time.
But for people living and working along the highway, that time is needed for consultations.
Oh, we're very nervous.
Devin Emery's ranch has been in his family for 40 years, and it may lie directly in the path of the expanded highway.
We want to be involved in that planning and design process as much as possible at an early as possible stage to ensure that our livelihood is not destroyed here.
Stephenson committed to extensive consultations with residents, Indigenous communities, and business owners on the final design. Whatever shape the highway takes, Emery hopes it leaves his ranch intact so it can be there for the next generation. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Falcon Lake.
The province is making it possible for more Manitobans to travel out of province for surgery. That will give them access to the care they need faster. But as the CBC's Ian Fraze reports, not everyone likes the idea.
Manitobans who need foot, ankle, and shoulder surgery can now go to more locations. The CBC Surgery Centre in Vancouver, Clearpoint Don Mills in Toronto, and the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. 550 people will be eligible over the next 2 years. But the decision to sign these contracts at all remains a source of contention.
I think the question remains, why is the PC government signing deals outside the province when there are offers for local solutions that seem to be ignored?
But the Progressive Conservatives maintains it's reducing the surgical backlog as quickly as possible by building up capacity in the public system and signing these contracts. In fact, the province says the 367 patients sent out of province free of charge is a small fraction of the 26,500 procedures the Surgical Task Force has signed with Manitoba providers. But still, sending patients outside the province isn't winning over everybody.
They keep saying that these are temporary measures, and yet they keep signing new contracts with so many of these different organizations.
The Manitoba Health Coalition, which has union and NDP ties, objects to all out-of-province contracts. But they have particular concern with the agreement just reached with the CBC Surgery Centre. It's run by Dr. Brian Day, a self-described champion of privatized healthcare who has fought lengthy court battles.
I don't think that it's something that Manitobans want their government associated with.
Thomas Linner wonders if that's why Manitoba isn't publicizing these new contracts.
If they were proud of this, why would they not have stood up beside Dr. Brian Day, shaking hands, talking about this wonderful new procedure that they're going to be able to offer in Vancouver?
Dr. Day says patients should be able to access private clinics when the public system is too slow.
There is no monopoly of any type that serves the person who wants or needs the service efficiently or well, because they don't have to provide good service because they're the only show in town. That's what the unions want, and it gives the union leaders power.
The province did not answer questions about his contract with Dr. Day. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A group show featuring the work of 5 contemporary Inuit artists opened today at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. The artists have all been shortlisted for the Kinojwak Ashivak Memorial Award presented by the WAG and the Inuit Art Foundation. They will all receive $5,000 in support of their artistic development and career growth. The winner, who will be announced in September, will have a solo exhibition along with having their work become a part of the WAG's Kalmiyuk collection.
I think there's also an aesthetic that is so unique and distinctive to them as artists that you can really recognize who they are just by looking at them. So they are really carving out a place for themselves in the art world.
As an Inuit artist myself, it's really exciting to see the opportunities that have come about in the last few years, not just through the Inuit Art Foundation, but through Canadian society as a whole. And I think it's important for all Canadians to listen to Inuit voice through artwork.
You can see the exhibit called Ananata Unikata, Our Mother's Stories, until November. What a beautiful evening out there for a ball game. The Winnipeg Goldeyes hold their home opener tonight at Shaw Park downtown. CBC's Jim Agapito is there and joins us now live. So what's it like at the ballpark tonight, Jim?
Janet, the energy here is amazing. There's so many people out, so many smiling faces, and the breeze, it's beautiful. What a beautiful day for a ball game. And right now, I have the Chief Operating Officer and the VP for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Introduce yourself.
Regan Cates, thanks for having me.
No problem. Regan, tell me, new season, What is the vibe like for the team?
It's an exciting year. This is our 30th anniversary season. I mean, 30 years of history here. We're celebrating. It's all about celebration.
Okay, 30 years is such a long time to be a baseball team. Tell me, what are your favorite memories?
You can't beat championships. Championships are the best, but this building with all this energy, full, home opener is always the best fun. Especially days like today. Sun's out, people going, hot dogs, cold beer. There's nothing better.
Sounds like such a great day for some fans. So, on the field, okay, with the players and coaches, what can people expect for the new season?
This is actually a bit of a transition year for us. We have a new manager, something a little bit different than we're used to. He focuses a lot on small ball, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Probably some closer games than we're used to. Hopefully even more wins than we're used to, and it's going to be a really unique year, but a lot of fun. I mean, we put together a winning product, and that's what we're after again.
Now, off the field, I think one of the best things about the Gold Eyes is the family experience and the fun for everyone. So what are some of the things some of the fans can expect at the arena?
We've packed a whole season full of fun. Like I said, it's all about celebrating. We're going to pay tribute to some players from the past. We're going to show some highlights of what we've accomplished. This is one of the best food courts in the city, and it's no different this year. We've got a few changes, introduced some new products, and we're just trying to have a really great time. It's family affordable fun, and it starts with the food and it ends with exciting baseball.
Now, it's been 30 years, and for kids or myself, if you want to be a part and dream to be a player for the Gold Eyes, what do you have to do? You have any tips?
Well, you got to work hard, work out, keep getting faster with the pitch, keep getting quicker with the swing, but it's precision. It takes dedication and practice, but I mean, anybody can.
Well, there you have it. Come down here to Shaw Park, watch some exciting baseball for the 30th year, and you're going to have a hell of a time. So thank you so much, Janet.
Thank you, Jim. That's CBC's Jim Agapito having a ball at Shaw Park. Just in time for what is expected to be a warm and sunny long weekend, most City of Winnipeg spray pads will open tomorrow. 19 of the city's 23 spray pads will open daily from 9:30 in the morning to 8:30 at night, including holidays, so they'll be running on Monday. They're free to use, of course. The Fort Rouge, Norquay Community Centre, Old X, and Shaughnessy spray pads are not yet open. City-run heated outdoor pools are expected to start opening on June 16th. Unheated pools begin opening June 30th. Waiting pools will open Canada Day. Our weather specialist Riley Laychuk joins us now. Hi, Riley. What a Friday!
That water looks really good.
It really did. Didn't that little boy look cute? Just in the spray pads are a wonderful thing.
Summer. Well, it's going to be a pretty nice long weekend for most of us in Manitoba. We do still have some air quality concerns that we're contending with in parts of the north. We have an air quality statement still in place for northern Manitoba, including the areas of Thompson, Norway House into that weather statement as well. And we are expecting to see, there we go. Really, this takes us right out into Western Canada as well. This is because of fires. The advisory here in Manitoba, because of the fires that are burning in parts of northern Saskatchewan right now, but we're still contending with lots of fires in Alberta and out into BC. So here's a bit of a closer look at the area that this covers. A fairly wide swath of northern Manitoba, from the northeastern part of the province all the way over to the northwest, areas like Brochet, Lynn Lake, Flin Flon, expecting to see smoky conditions as we get into the day. Tomorrow we'll see things dissipating a bit because we will see a bit of a cold front moving through, which will cool our temperatures down and kind of push that smoke out. So not a lot to see on satellite radar right now. Fairly sunny skies, a little bit of cloud in the far northern part of the province, and that's generally what we're going to be seeing through the weekend. Clear skies as we get into the night tonight. There's that cold front as we get into Saturday, bringing a bit of rain to parts of northern Manitoba. Very short-lived as we get into Saturday morning. Saturday mainly sunny across most of Manitoba. Just a little bit of high weather cloud as we get into Sunday as well. And just not a lot to talk about. We're just going to see a pretty nice long weekend across most of Manitoba. It's when we get into Monday that we start to see maybe a little bit of showers through central Manitoba and a more organized system right along the border with Nunavut as we get into the early part of Monday morning. 21 degrees in Winnipeg right now. This is as good as we got today. Gee, it did feel a lot warmer than that out there this afternoon. If you had a chance to get outside, it was quite nice. Wind's still a bit gusty, but nothing too bad to complain about right now. We'll see the winds picking up a little bit as we get into the night tonight, tapering off as we get into tomorrow. Here's what the upper atmosphere looks like. It isn't going to be a total hot May long weekend. We're going to see some temperatures moderating a bit, and that's because we do have a bit of a ridge that's going to be moving to our south as we get into Saturday, so it's going to usher in a bit of a cooler flow as we get into Sunday here. The hot weather still blanketing Saskatchewan, Alberta. That does push toward Manitoba a bit as we get into Monday and into the later part of next week. But generally, our pattern is going to stay quite cool. We'll see some rainy conditions even as we get into the later part of next week. Tonight in Winnipeg, we're looking at a clear sky. Still a bit of haze overnight tonight. 10 degrees our low this evening. Winds gusting to 40 out of the southwest. Otherwise, just a few clouds in the morning at 13 degrees. 21 tomorrow afternoon in the sunshine once again. So we're looking at another beautiful, gorgeous day under the sunshine here in the south tomorrow. Temperatures do pick up as we get into the day on Sunday. 23 degrees, a bit breezy, 29 on Monday. And we'll see a bit of clouds start to build in, maybe some showers overnight Tuesday into Wednesday with a high of 25. Could even see a thunderstorm, Janet, as we get into the later part of next week. And I'll talk about that a bit later in the show.
And we'll get the lightning tracker all fired up for next week for sure. Thanks very much, Riley.
No problem.
The Winnipeg Sea Bears got their first day of training camp under their belts today, ahead of opening day next Saturday. This is the inaugural season for the team, which became part of the Canadian Elite Basketball League when it expanded into our city last year. 6 local players are taking part in the camp, with 4 claiming spots during the team's tryouts. Head coach Mike Taylor says having local talent on the team is important.
We want to have a Winnipeg influence because we want to connect with the city, number one. We want to establish ourselves as really connected with the programs, number two. And again, you want to tap into the local market. So not only players, but staff, I think we've done that. And again, we want to build the Sea Bears to stay. And we want really, I think the local part of it, the local flavor here in Winnipeg is a really big piece.
The team takes on the visiting Vancouver Bandits at Canada Life Centre May 27th. Now, this is not the first pro basketball team to play here in Peg City. The CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse sat down recently with Ross Wedlake, a Manitoba Basketball Hall of Famer and also basketball historian, to look back at the history of pro basketball in Winnipeg and why this newest version, the Sea Bears, could be a slam dunk in the city.
The first recorded game of basketball in the province of Manitoba was in the year 1900. So that would be only 9 years after its invention. And according to the records we have, limited as they may be, the score in that game, we don't know the names of the teams, but the score was 4-1.
Wow, 4-1.
And it was played, yes, and it was played at the old drill hall building, which used to be at the corner of Broadway and Osborne. Now, when Naismith invented the game, he only had 13 rules that he had for the game of basketball, which is really interesting because now when you look at a rule book for basketball, there's over 100 pages. So the game was probably played with a lot of confusion and a lot of growth and learning that had to be done because, in fact, I wish we had a tape of it because it probably would be pretty comical.
When people think of pro basketball, the start of pro basketball here, a lot of people would think about the Oilers if you want to go that far back in history.
Senior men's basketball was the best basketball played. It was better than university, better than anything played in the schools, better than any junior leagues. So it was the top, we could call it almost a professional league. According to the records, these were a group of young men who were good friends of each other who lived in Fort Garry. As a matter of fact, on Riverside Park, there is a Oilers Park. And according to the records, there was a clubhouse there that these young men would gather. And they knew each other very well. And they started this team called the Oilers in the middle 20s. And from the middle 20s to the early 30s, they won 3 national senior men's championships. They were the best we had in those days. In 1933, they were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, playing a game there because they looked for competition, better competition outside of Canada. And they had gone there to play a team in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and on the flight back, the plane crashed. and a number of the toilers were injured, 2 were killed. And so that really ended the era of the toilers, because for a lot of reasons, the team was never really able to get back together again, and they maybe saw it as an end of an era, which it was. The Thunders were here 1992 to 1994. They were the first really pro basketball team to play out of Winnipeg. They played out of the old Winnipeg Arena. The interest, the number of people who would go really didn't make it economically viable, and that's probably why it ended. Although another bigger problem was most of the teams, all of them were in the United States, and so distances became an issue. And distances mean cost, and so not only for teams to come here, but for the Thunder to go other places became very expensive. And really it came down to dollars and cents, and the team, as I said, only lasted the 2 years. The Cyclone were here, and they were, I think it was 96 to 2001. They were reasonably successful, and they played out of the RBC Convention Center, which again was a much better venue just based on the size of it. And they played for, as I said, I believe it was 5 seasons in the convention center. They used to call it the Wind Tunnel. And they had some very interesting people like Daryl Dawkins. He coached the Cyclone for 1 year. And his nickname was Chocolate Thunder when he played, because he was one of the first in the NBA that started to tear down backboards before they had breakaway rims and all that with his ferocious dunks.
Is there an appetite for pro basketball in the city, do you think?
I think so, and I think more than there's ever been. First of all, the basketball community has grown tremendously. We have hundreds of thousands of people playing the game of basketball now. And one big area that I could mention is the large influx of Filipinos to Winnipeg. Like, the Filipino population is crazy about basketball. There are a lot of Filipino leagues. I think the time is right. The game of basketball is for sure a global game now.
That was Ross Wedlake, a Manitoba Basketball Hall of Famer, a basketball historian and coach. You can see an extended video of that interview on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. And hey, when you're there, remember to click subscribe. Coming up, a strike was averted, but not without disruption. We'll bring you the latest on WestJet, how it reached a tentative deal with its pilots union this morning, and what it all means for travelers after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The threatened WestJet airline strike was over before it started. The company and pilots union reached a tentative deal overnight, narrowly averting the strike that was to start at 2 a.m. today. But as we hear from Ido Musa, the deal didn't stop the airline from canceling more than 100 flights.
It was a deal reached at the 11th hour. A tentative agreement between WestJet and its pilots union came late Thursday night.
This agreement is just one of many steps we are taking to re-establish WestJet as the friendly, reliable and affordable airline that you know and love.
But there wasn't a whole lot of love on Friday among some holiday travelers like this man.
What time is that flight to Winnipeg? 9 o'clock? That one's being canceled as well.
WestJet says it canceled nearly 100 flights Friday in anticipation of a strike, leaving many in the lurch.
We're missing out on a weekend with my daughter.
I paid a good decent chunk of money for the trip, and now unfortunately we're kind of at a standstill.
We planned it, and then we never expected this in a million years.
Some are vowing to never fly with the airline again, but
if you're a Canadian and you're flying, you've got 2, maybe 3 choices. They know that, the airlines know that.
WestJet pilots were bargaining for higher pay, better job security and scheduling. With a shortage of workers in a high-demand industry, this expert says they had the upper hand, and more labor disruptions could be on the horizon for airlines.
Bargaining power is shifting to workers and labor and unions. I'm not saying they're going to have complete power, but they're going to have a lot more power than they did before.
WestJet says it's ramping up operations to try and get passengers to their destinations, and those who have had their flights canceled will be refunded or reaccommodated. Ido Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Here in Winnipeg, travelers were scrambling, making other arrangements for flights today. Some were lucky enough to get booked on another carrier. Others were stuck waiting. Here's what they told us this morning.
It's frustrating, but I think also it just means there's a larger problem, and I think it needs to be figured out, because I think as a consumer, we are only given 2 options: fly to Montreal, and it's not fair.
We all are working people, and we all want a fair share, when we work. And it's not that someone can walk out of the job and then all these people get stranded, and they have to be somewhere. Someone is sick, someone dying, whatever is happening in their lives. So it's not easy for people to suffer from these strikes and all that.
Thank goodness the strike was averted, which is great. It's just too bad they couldn't reinstate all the flights that had been canceled. There is a flight, it's with WestJet, but it's going to cost me about $1,000. And that's just something that I just don't have. That's why I chose Swoop, is because it's the cheaper airline.
We have some breaking news to share with you now. Winnipeg police are speaking this hour at River and Osborne in Osborne Village here in Winnipeg. We can tell you police executed a search warrant at a business in the 100 block of Osborne Street today. Winnipeg police say this business was selling illegal magic mushrooms. Magic Mush opened its doors this past Saturday in Osborne Village. Look at all the colorful psychedelic artwork in the store. It sold magic mushrooms, which are banned substances in Canada. Winnipeg police say officers with the Drug Enforcement Unit were very aware of this store. Inspector Elton Hall of the Organized Crime Division spoke just moments ago.
Well, it's exactly like you said. They're controlled and they're illegal, so you can't be selling these. This is drug trafficking. That's all this is. I know there was a lawyer in the media a little while ago, a labor lawyer, commenting on this, that this is a responsible way of trafficking drugs. There's no responsible way to traffic drugs. It's illegal. These are drug traffickers and they'll be charged accordingly.
Police say this may be an interprovincial investigation, but they will not comment further. The company that owns the store is based in Ontario. Police say details on arrests and what was seized there will be released at a later date. We'll bring you more on this story tonight on CBC Winnipeg late night at 11, and also on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Leaders from various Arab nations are gathered today in Saudi Arabia for a regional summit. The world's attention, however, is focused on presidents from two countries in attendance. One returning after being suspended from the Arab League for more than a decade. The other is the leader of a country at war with Russia right now. Abby Kuavasan has the story.
The return of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to the world stage after being shunned for more than a decade by his regional counterparts for his government's crackdown during the Arab Spring and alleged war crimes during the Syrian civil war. The host of this year's summit welcomed him with open arms. While the 22-member organization was not unanimous in its decision, the League sees engaging with Assad as a way to ensure his country does not continue to destabilize the region.
You have a strategic stalemate. On the one hand, regime backers and regime have managed to regain control of most of the country. You have a West which is not interested in Syria because it's not a priority for them, except for refugee crisis for Europe.
About 5.5 million Syrian refugees live in 5 neighboring countries, and anti-refugee sentiment is growing in some places. And the League is also looking to curb the Syrian drug trade, which the EU and US say provides billions to the Assad regime. Many in Syria are outraged by their president's presence at the summit, fearful the invite legitimizes him and erases his crimes.
Authoritarian leaders like Putin and others, definitely they will be happy with what they are seeing today in Jeddah.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was also at the summit and brought his country's concerns to Arab leaders.
And I'm here so that everyone can take an honest look, no matter how hard the Russians try to influence. There must still be independence.
Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman says he's prepared to mediate the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but some worry how a league that now appears to have put the crimes of Syria's leader behind them will deal with Russian aggression in Ukraine. Abby Kuavasan, CBC News, London.
We are heading to what for many of us is a long weekend. We've heard officials here in Manitoba say, please be careful out in the woods because our grasslands are getting far drier. Well, understandably, officials in Alberta are going farther. They're asking residents to restrict outdoor activities and to stay vigilant heading into this long weekend in the hopes they can help reduce wildfire risk. There are currently 92 fires burning in Alberta. 26 are deemed out of control. 12 provincial parks have been closed to lessen the risk of fires starting and spreading in Alberta. Fire bans have been put in place for close to 300 provincial parks and recreation areas. Nearly 2,700 firefighters, including members of the Canadian military and crews from other provinces, including Manitoba and the United States, are assisting. Still ahead, Riley Laychuk has his look at the Manitoba forecast so you can plan your province-wide activities. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Two lawyers in Toronto have launched a campaign to help newcomers to Canada learn more about their employment rights. They were motivated by clients who they said were not being treated fairly by their employers. And they decided to post informational videos in South Asian languages on TikTok and also on Instagram. Kirthana Sassoner has more.
Richa Sandil has worked as an employment lawyer for over 5 years. Over that time, she's had many South Asian clients and noticed a common problem.
So many people who speak Urdu, who speak Punjabi, who speak Bangla, Tamil, especially out in Scarborough, who were just being taken advantage of by their employers because of the language barrier.
That's when she approached the South Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario, also known as SALCO, and joined Anshul Bhatia to create a campaign called Tariq Pe Tariq. It breaks down the ins and outs of workers' rights through informational videos in South Asian languages. The campaign is based on a line in a Bollywood movie which references delays in the justice system.
It's tongue-in-cheek, but it also has some name recognition. It also has a little bit of semblance to some of the things that Anshul and I see in our practice as employment lawyers. Litigation can be delayed, can be messy.
We're really speaking towards your basic employment rights, which is mostly coming out of the Employment Standards Act. All of this information can be found on the Ministry of Labor's website.
Currently, the videos are made in Tamil, Bengali, Punjabi, Urdu, and Hindi, created by lawyers and law students who volunteer their time. Bhatia hopes the videos help workers identify if they've been wronged or exploited.
If they can kind of issue spot on their own, they might be encouraged to reach out to lawyers to get more fulsome advice.
25,000 views almost.
Yeah,
almost, literally just under 25,000 views. And we've got lots of them.
This project is really important, and I found that this would be a great way to give back to the community.
Nadia Zaman makes videos in Bengali. She says while not every word gets translated sometimes, it's the overall messaging that counts.
We are gaining ownership of our communities and cultures and languages, and we're using it in a positive light.
Now Bhatia and Sandil are looking for more South Asian lawyers to volunteer in their campaign.
Employment law is very expansive, and the more you talk about it, there's still more to learn. So we'd love to do more videos.
Kirtana Sasitharan, CBC News, Toronto.
Those videos are a great idea, aren't they? Severe flooding continues to hamper rescue efforts in Italy's northeast. This crew had to access a building's balcony by helicopter, as you see, to carry out a sick toddler. Some people had to be rescued from flooded streets using boats. Entire neighborhoods remain submerged underwater. This museum opened its doors to evacuees who had nowhere to go. More than 15,000 people have been displaced across 43 towns. This week's deluge has killed at least 14 people. After 2 years of drought, the parched ground just could not absorb this month's massive amount of rainfall that came so quickly. The damages caused are estimated to be in the billions of dollars. Our weather specialist Riley Laychuk's keeping an eye on our weather, and thankfully nothing as dramatic.
Nothing as dramatic as that on the flood side, but we have had some wildfires in parts of northern Manitoba and really across the western provinces, and we have conditions that are extremely good, I think the word I'm looking for wildfire development. And we can look at the map from Natural Resources Canada. This is our fire danger rating for today. So, you know, we did see some of that fire danger rating go back down into the lows and the moderates for much of the province with these blues and these greens, but still parts of western Manitoba through into Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, into the extremes and the high range in terms of wildfire risk, just how much available vegetation there is and how dry the conditions have been. So certainly a weekend to take care. I know there are some burn bans in place across the province. So before you start any fire pits, you'll want to take those into consideration. So it's been quite warm across Western Canada. We're at 22 in Regina, approaching 30 in Calgary and parts of southern Alberta, and a bit cooler out on the west coast. And really, we have seen temperatures that have been a bit cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks across southern Ontario. In the 20s with some rain through Windsor and Toronto. Ottawa also at 21 right now, and single digits on the east coast, Halifax and St. John's at the moment. So here's a bit closer to home now. 20 in Selkirk, 21 in Winnipeg at the airport, 22 downtown. It's been a pretty lovely afternoon, safe for a bit of breeze here and there through parts of southern Manitoba. And generally, the low 20s is where we're sitting at across the province this hour. 23s for Dauphin and Swan River, 21 in Brandon at the moment. 19 in Norway House, 20 in Gillam, 2 degrees at the moment in Churchill. We're seeing the effects of the cooler water on the Hudson Bay coast really pull the temperatures down a bit along the Hudson Bay coast. For tonight, our forecast looks like this in through northwestern Ontario, single digits, mainly cloudy skies. We'll see clearing through the overnight tonight toward a mainly sunny morning into the day tomorrow. Single digits for the most part across southeastern Manitoba. Winnipeg, a clear sky at 10 degrees this evening. Into the southwest, we're expecting clear skies as well. A few clouds here and there, temperatures right around 10, 11 degrees, a bit cooler with 7 in Brandon, and in northern Manitoba, same thing. Chance of showers in Gillam at +3, a bit cooler toward the Island Lake region, but otherwise a fairly comfortable evening for this time of the year anyway. 17 in Norway House and Flin Flon, 20 under a mainly sunny sky in the Pas tomorrow. Mainly sunny skies across the south as well. A bit breezy into the morning hours. We'll see things sort of taper off as we get later into the day. High 20s for southwestern Manitoba and south central Manitoba, and that is the case really across much of the south as well. 25 in Winnipeg, 26s through Emerson, Steinbach, Pinawa, Sprague, and much the same through Cottage Country in northwestern Ontario as well. Low 20s, but lots of sunshine as we get into Saturday. Sunday is looking much the same, and I'll have those details in your 7-day forecast coming up.
Thank you, Riley. It's an event intended for children, but adults are welcome too. After the break, why the Canadian Museum for Human Rights wanted to host Drag Storytime this weekend. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. According to the American Civil Liberties Association, 490 bills attacking LGBTQ rights and equality have advanced in the United States over the past few years. Just this week, Texas banned transgender medical care for children, and on the same day, Florida enacted a range of new restrictions covering bathrooms, pronouns, and how a parent can help their transgender child. I spoke with Reva Harrison of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights yesterday, and we talked about the shadow this kind of pushback could cast as we enter Pride season. Reva Harrison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It feels like Pride season is coming in Manitoba at almost a time when certainly members of the transgender community would be watching events in the United States and feeling perhaps a little frightened. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question, Janet. And not just the United States, we're seeing conversations about banning books locally and other issues of equality and inclusion. And it does feel like Pride is coming at a more poignant time, at a time when folks are experiencing a rollback in hard-won rights. And so it does remind us of the roots of Pride, that at its heart it began as a protest. It helped earn hard-won equality for 2S LGBTQ folks. And it's time for us to be reminded of that and to stand up and push back against attempts to roll back our rights.
With that framing, what role do you see the Canadian Museum for Human Rights playing this Pride season?
Well, we always celebrate Pride and celebrate diversity in our community throughout the entire year. It's a huge part of what we do. Our role, our core of our mission is education. It's about media literacy. It's about inclusion. It's about understanding the importance of advancing rights and dignity for all. This season, we're even doing a bit more even with Pride. Our own Rainbow Equity Council, our staff who live and work in the 2S LGBTQ community said, let's do a bit more, and have put on some events, some additional events that we can celebrate diversity and just be part of saying that there is more than one way to live your life and that it is okay to be you.
One of those events actually is tomorrow. It'll be the first sort of Pride-connected event of the season. Tell us about your event on Saturday.
Yeah, we're starting Saturday morning. We're kicking off basically 2 weeks of a variety of events, and Saturday morning includes a drag storytime event. And drag storytime it's fun and entertaining, to be sure, but its roots are all about in promoting inclusion, encouraging literacy through reading, and really bringing those concepts together that are so important in helping us educate ourselves, our community, our youth for tomorrow, so that we are building a more inclusive and well-educated society. And again, this connects to what we do every day at the museum in our advancement and promotion of human rights.
So you have drag queens reading to kids age 4 to 10. What would you say to a parent who thinks children 4 to 10 might be confused by seeing people in drag?
Well, I think if you look at the origins of drag and the use of it as a Hollywood tool or dating back to Shakespearean days, then the notion of people in costume expressing themselves in different ways is hundreds of years old, if not older. So it is not a new concept. It is about showcasing diversity. It is about promoting inclusion and literacy and having some fun while doing it. And that is the essence of those types of events.
And how do kids of a young age, like 4, absorb these sorts of lessons? How do you think it helps them to grow?
I think that anytime we are exposed to things that widen our horizons and help us understand that people of all types live in our world and share a community with us, it just helps us understand that it is a diverse world out there. Deciding not to do things, banning things, curtailing activities doesn't stop diversity. Diversity is a fact. It's around us in everything we do. The choice we make is to be inclusive. The choice we make is to accept that we live in community with people who are different than ourselves.
Reva Harrison, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Janet.
Weather specialist Riley Laychuk will have your 7-day forecast, and then we'll bring you your daily lift after the break. Stay with us.
UV index 8 or very high tomorrow. So remember the sunscreen, drink lots of water, and find some shade. 25, the high in Winnipeg tomorrow. A bit cooler on Sunday with 23 degrees. Then we warm up a little bit more, 29 for Tuesday. Then we see a chance of showers getting through the later part of the week. Could even see a thunderstorm by the time we get to next Friday. Well, one small community in the interior of British Columbia is rolling out a unique pilot project this long weekend.
As Jennifer Norwell explains, it involves chauffeuring your dog around. Here is your daily lift, or in this case, your daily push.
Entrepreneur Anne-Marie Fleming has an idea that she thinks tourists are going to lap up.
I think tourism needs to be a little creative these days.
She's been working with the district of 100 Mile House on a unique project, offering her dog strollers, or doggers, for free to visitors. Some dogs struggle on longer walks, but the community wanted to be accessible.
100 Mile House is a super friendly very dog-friendly town. I don't know that there's too many people in our entire South Caribou that don't own pets.
She sees this as a way to grow the town's economy and draw in dog owners.
It's really been a big benefit for us, all of us, four-legged and two-legged.
Grieve and her dog Ellie have been using the dogger for 6 years. That means they get out of the house more often.
If you're wondering how to use the dog stroller, simple. Just pick the dog up, put the dog in the stroller, clip them in. The only thing, there's a 60-pound limit. Plus, you can cover them up if it's hot.
It's a free service like a dog stroller that might entice Stephanie Worley to hit the road to 100 Mile from her home in Kamloops.
You live for your dog, really.
She worries 16-year-old Chevy doesn't know the limits of his aging bones.
And everything you do is a focus around them, you know, like especially when you're traveling.
Come here. Oh!
This tourism expert sees the potential in pitching to pooch owners.
It's a great idea and something that kind of signifies that they're a dog-friendly place. The statistics we see on consumer behavior around pet spending are all increasing significantly and have gone way up since the pandemic.
That's what Fleming hopes happens, so that others can enjoy taking their dogs on chauffeured tours of the Caribou.
I could honestly see that people will plan their trip if we could say you get the option of taking a dog stroller from visitor centers, you know, 4 or 5 places along the highway, that they plan their trips that way.
Her hope, to see doggers at tourist stops across BC so that people can plan their travels around their pups. Jennifer Norwell, CBC News, 100 Mile House.
Right?
That looks like a lot of fun.
I know. Well, my dog doesn't quite love his stroller,
Yeah.
but you know.
Great thing to do on the long weekends.
It is. And it's not like you can walk a pug
Yeah,
very far.
that's true.
Not in the heat.
Have a good one.
Have a great weekend. See you on Tuesday.